Hey guys, it's Dr. Drake 63 here, and what I've got for you here is one of the bucket list firearms I've been wanting to get for a long time. It's the Remington Model 81, and this is the original Woodsmaster. I say the original, this title's been used for the 742 and others over time, but those designs just are not anywhere in any way, shape, or form like this. This is a fabled design. The Remington 81, as you'll see in a few minutes from pictures and close-ups, is in beautiful condition. This firearm has a lot of history with it, guys. Specifically, it's a turn-of-the-century John Browning design that was renamed the Model 8 in the year 1911. And basically, after incorporating a more modern Monte Carlo type stock in 1936, 1937, that's when it was renamed the Model 81. Among other things, this gun is got a little bit of a mythological status in the Model 8 version as the firearm that was used to kill Clyde Barrow at the ambush of Bonnie and Clyde. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. There's some myths around which model was used and so forth. It was a Model 8, not this Model 81. This particular one has been modified with some peep sights on it somewhere along the line. These are the correct ones for this particular model. These are Williams sights. I would have to tell you, as somebody that loves semi-auto rifles, I can't wait to shoot this. That's going to be a separate video, but today we're just going to talk about how this thing works and a little bit, like I said, about the history. But very pleased to have this firearm now as my own, and can't wait to get this to the range and tell you more. But today, like I said, a little bit of history, a little bit about the gun. Stay tuned. Between 1932 and 1934, outlaws Bonnie and Clyde went on a crime spree throughout the Midwest down into Texas, killing 14 people and as many as 9 law enforcement officers, a few of which were just flat out in cold blood. So the decision was made to go after these two with an ambush, which they did in Louisiana. Myth number one was that the original shots were fired using a modified Model 8, which is not true. This is what a modified Model 8 looks like. But instead, the original shots were fired using a standard Model 8 in .35 Remington. Also, notice the difference in stock from mine. Myth number two is that Frank Hamer was the one that shot Clyde Barrow using Frank Hamer's Model 8. That's not true. A Louisiana deputy named Prentice Oakley is the one who put 2 shots into Clyde's head, and that's what was the start of that ambush. Okay, so we're going to talk about this bad boy a little bit. A couple things to mention right off the bat. It has an internal magazine. This is not detachable. There were modifications that were made for police that were a detachable 15 or even 20 round magazine. These aftermarket retrofits were made by the Peace Officers Equipment Company in St. Joseph, Missouri. But this is a fixed magazine, and you load it from the top right here. Okay. And this particular one is loaded in .35 Remington. It's not a cheap round to shoot, guys. It's in the neighborhood of $1.25 a piece, maybe a little bit less if you reload. But I can guarantee I'm not going to take this and go shoot it the same way that I might shoot, say, an AR, where ammo is closer to a quarter. But this is a stout round. It's, like I said, .35 caliber bullet. It's something that back in the day was developed by Remington specifically for this rifle. And the reason it was developed was the police wanted something that was going to be able to penetrate car doors, engine blocks, things like that. And the pistol calibers at the time weren't doing it. The .30-30 was not quite enough of a ballistic cross section in their opinion. So this round was developed specifically, like I said, for this firearm. So like I mentioned, internal magazine holds 5 rounds. And you can get stripper clips for this, although I've seen them on eBay for $100. No kidding. So I'll be hand loading this, that's for sure. But you can see by looking at it that it has some familiar characteristics. One of them is this safety. And if anybody of you are AK guys, you know that this is exactly the same kind of safety that you see on an AK. Basically, it closes, prevents the bolt from going back, and you also can't pull the trigger. Okay. So that's basically something that you have to wonder where Mikhail Kalashnikov got the idea for the safety on the AK. I don't have to wonder too much. But what's different about this looks like it's got a big bull barrel on it, but it really doesn't. If you look at it, you'll see a little bit better when we take it apart in a minute. Here's the barrel right here. And then it's got this sleeve. And what this is there's a recoil spring that surrounds the barrel going back. And what happens when you fire this weapon is the recoil of the barrel driving backwards is what forces the bolt back and rechambering for your next shot. So very interesting kind of setup. It was the same basic kind of principle that Browning used in his automatic shotgun. Okay. What you see here is the bolt release, and I'll show you again how that operates. This particular one typically would have a sight that would mount right here, and this sight was taken off when this peep sight was installed. Now, for authenticity's sake, I'd love to have that buckhorn sight on there. For purposes of what's going to be a better shooter, there's no doubt that this peep sight's going to be great. And these Williams, these old school Williams, adjustable with clicks and showing you where you are in terms of windage and elevation, gotta like that. Okay. Also, if you notice right here, see the letter R, the letter F. What that means is that this rifle was manufactured in November, which is the letter R. That's the Remington coating system. And F, which recycles through the years, but there's only one during the range of time where this was manufactured, which means that this rifle was manufactured in November 1937. And you can see as we're close up here that, you know, it's got a little bit of wear going on with it. It's got a low serial number. The Model 81, there was only a total of 57,000 or so of these ever made. Well, let me tell you, this guy right here, you couldn't make these today without charging an arm and a leg. Just the processes involved, the machining, the milling, everything else. You just couldn't. I'm not saying this is better than a modern semi-auto. It just is what it is. But this has a metal butt plate on it. And like I said, the older version, the Model 8, had that straight stock coming off. So it looked a lot more like, say, a Winchester 94 type of stock. And what we're looking at right here is this screw, and this is how we take it down. That's what we're going to show you next. Okay, a couple things I was going to show you. First of all, here's your safety. You need that open, and then you can cycle the bolt. Now, what's really nice, if you look at this knob here, that's very large, easy to grab a hold of, wear gloves in the wintertime or whatever. Okay, and then on this other side, the flip side, that's your bolt release. So if I push this down, it's going to slam the bolt forward, which is okay to do. This gun was meant to be bolt slam forward. Okay, the firing pin inside is on a spring, so you don't have the chance of slam fire in this. It's only going to come forward when it's chambered and loading the trigger. Okay, so I've got this locked back, and the next thing I'm going to do is simply take off this screw right here. This is a takedown screw, and this is kind of a nifty way of doing things that, from Mr. Browning, who, you know, was always innovative, always built things to last, that's for sure. And That goes out so far, and then I can pull this off, and here's what's cool. Okay, here is your takedown apparatus. So basically, now you just turn that just like I'm doing here, and you know, you get to a point where you can just twirl the whole thing, and you see this comes right out, and this is your barrel mechanism, which I'll show you in a second. And you can see here's your internal magazine. The bolt is towards the back, and it slides along this track, so that as it goes up, you're going to see, and it's not going to close without the barrel end. So this really isn't a good time to show you that, but basically with the barrel end, it opens this channel, allows the bolt to slide forward, and there you go. That's what the inside of this looks like. Okay, so here's something that's kind of interesting. I mentioned that this was a giant spring inside holding the barrel. Well, here's the barrel cap, here's the barrel itself, and so what happens is when you fire, this whole mechanism shoots back, and then it will move the bolt, cycle to the next round, and be ready to go. So very interesting. You can see right there, stamped 35 Remington. Okay, but that's a spring-loaded situation. Now, if I wanted to get into a complete takedown video, which I just don't want to do, you unscrew this cap, and then you take the spring and the barrel out, and so forth and so on. But pretty nifty kind of scenario. So to put this back together, all I need to do is put this guy back in here, and then we're just a matter of tightening this same takedown bolt. Now, once I've reached the point where I've got her hand tight and pretty much flush on the last go around, this is kind of neat how this works. You see in here's a pocket, and inside this pocket fits your little takedown pin, and now you're back on this and ready to go. I think they went to this stouter screw, a little bit stiffer affair, with the idea that you don't want it to come off as easy as having your sling loosen it. So that's the big difference. But that's about it. That's your takedown, your basic takedown of this particular firearm. I had a guy make a comment upon showing a picture of this in one of my Facebook groups that he was real disappointed when he picked up the Model 81 and how heavy it was and not very handy to carry around, and he didn't want to dissuade me from liking the weapon, but I'd made a pretty bad choice, and he didn't understand why anybody would want a weapon or a firearm this heavy at 8 pounds or this clunky. And one thing I could think to say was John Browning didn't design anything half-assed. He built everything pretty much like a tank. Anybody that's ever picked up or carried the Browning BAR knows exactly what I'm talking about. The 1911, again, was built like a tank. That's why 1911s that are 100 years old are still firing and working just fine today. And that's why this particular firearm, which was made in 1937, reportedly by the guy who sold it to me, fires like a champ. We'll verify that in our next video.
Want to thank you for watching today. I can't wait to take this out and shoot it. As you can imagine, that's what our next video is going to be. Probably get that out to you here within the next few days. Thanks again. This is Dr. Drake 63 saying have a great day and keep shooting, guys.